Language and communication, from rules to meaning. Learning outcomes. Describe the basic characteristics of language. Explain the milestones of language development. Compare the behaviorist, nativist, and interactionist theories of language development. Describe the language centers of the brain. Most social species have systems of communication that allow them to transmit messages to each other. Honeybees communicate the location of food sources by means of a waggle dance that indicates both the direction and distance of the food source from the hive. Kirchner and Town, 1994, von Frisch, 1974. Vervet monkeys have 3 different warning calls that uniquely signal the presence of their main predators, a leopard, an eagle, and a snake. Cheney and Seyfarth, 1990. A leopard call provokes monkeys to climb higher into a tree, an eagle call makes them look up into the sky, and a snake signal makes them look down. Each different warning call conveys a particular meaning and functions like a word in a simple language. Image with the following description, 2 photos. The photo on the left shows a honeybee. The photo on the right shows a honeycomb with honeybees all over it. Honeybees communicate with each other about the location of food by doing a waggle dance that indicates the direction and distance of food from the hive. Language is a system for communicating with others using signals that are combined according to rules of grammar and that convey meaning. Grammar is a set of rules that specify how the units of language can be combined to produce meaningful messages. Language allows individuals to exchange information about the world, coordinate group action, and form strong social bonds. The complex structure of human language distinguishes it from simpler signaling systems used by other species. It allows us to express a wide range of ideas and concepts, including intangible concepts such as unicorn or democracy. The structure of human language. There are approximately 4,000 human languages, which linguists have grouped into about 50 language families. Natasti, 1995. Despite their differences, all of these languages share a basic structure involving a set of sounds and rules for combining those sounds to produce meanings. The smallest units of sound that are recognizable as speech rather than as random noise are called phonemes. These building blocks of spoken language differ in how they are produced. For example, when you say ba, your vocal cords start to vibrate as soon as you begin the sound, but when you say pot, there is a 60 millisecond lag between the time you start the p sound and the time your vocal cords start to vibrate. Every language has phonological rules that indicate how phonemes can be combined to produce speech sounds. Speech sounds. For example, the initial sound ts is acceptable in German but not in English. Typically, people learn these phonological rules without instruction, and if the rules are violated, the resulting speech sounds odd. Phonemes are combined to make morphemes, the smallest meaningful units of language. Units of language, see figure 9.1. For example, your brain recognizes the D sound you make at the beginning of dog as a speech sound, but it carries no particular meaning. The morpheme dog, on the other hand, is recognized as an element of speech that carries meaning.
Meaning. Adding s to dog, dogs, changes the meaning of the word, so
Here s functions as a morpheme. Image with the following description, a tree diagram shows a sentence divided into phrases, words, morphemes, and phonemes. Figure 9.1 Units of language. A sentence can be broken down into progressively smaller units, phrases, morphemes, and phonemes. In all languages, phonemes and morphemes form words, which can be combined into phrases and ultimately into sentences. The sentence "the kids hit the balls" is divided into 2 phrases, "the kids" and "hit the balls." The phrase "the kids" is divided into 2 words, "the" and "kids." The word "the" has 1 morpheme, "the", and the word "kids" has 2 morphemes, "kid" and "s". The morpheme "the" has 2 phonemes, "th" and "schwa". The morpheme "kid" is divided into 3 phonemes, "k", "i", and "d". The morpheme "s" has 1 phoneme, "s". The phrase "hit the balls" is divided into 3 words, "hit", "they", and "balls". The word hit has 1 morpheme, "hit", the word "the" has 1 morpheme, "the", and the word "balls" has 2 morphemes, "ball" and "s". The morpheme "hit" has 3 phonemes, "h", "i", and "t". The morpheme "the" has 2 phonemes, "th" and "schwa". The morpheme "ball" has 3 phonemes, "b", "o", and "l". The morpheme "s" has language and communication, from rules to meaning. And rules allows for combining those sounds to produce meanings. The smallest units of sound that are recognizable as speech rather than as random noise are called phonemes. These building blocks of spoken language differ in how they are produced. For example, when you say ba, your vocal cords start to vibrate as soon as you begin the sound, but when you say pa, there is a 60 millisecond lag between the time you start the p sound and the time your vocal cords start to vibrate. Every language has phonological rules that indicate how phonemes can be combined to produce speech sounds. For example, the initial sound ts is acceptable in German but not in English. Typically, people learn these phonological rules without instruction, and if the rules are violated, the resulting speech sounds odd. Phonemes are combined to make morphemes, the smallest meaningful units of language. See Figure 9.1. For example, your brain recognizes the D sound you make at the beginning of dog as a speech sound, but it carries no particular meaning. The morpheme dog, on the other hand, is recognized as an element of speech that carries meaning. Adding s to dog, dogs, changes the meaning of the word, so here s functions as a morpheme. Image with the following description: a tree diagram shows a sentence divided into phrases, words, morphemes, and phonemes. Figure 9.1 Units of language. A sentence can be broken down into progressively smaller units, phrases, morphemes, and phonemes. In all languages, phonemes and morphemes form words, which can be combined into phrases and ultimately into sentences. The sentence "the kids hit the balls" is divided into two phrases, "the kids" and "hit the balls." The phrase "the kids" is divided into two words, "the" and "kids." The word "the" has one morpheme, "the", and the word "kids" has two morphemes, "kid" and "s". The morpheme "the" has two phonemes, "th" and "schwa". The morpheme "kid" is divided into three phonemes, "k", "i", and "d". The morpheme "s" has one phoneme, "s". The phrase "hit the balls" is divided into three words, "hit", "they", and "balls". The word "hit" has one morpheme, "hit", the word "the" has one morpheme, "they", and the word "balls" has two morphemes, "ball" and "s". The morpheme "hit" has three phonemes, "h", "i", and "t". The morpheme "the" has two phonemes, "th" and "schwa". The morpheme "ball" has three phonemes, "b", "o", and "l". The morpheme "s" has only one phoneme, "s". All languages have morphological rules that indicate how content morpheme can be combined to form words. Some indicate how morphemes can be combined to form words. Some morphemes, content morphemes and function morphemes, can stand alone as words. Content morphemes refer to things and events, example cat, dog, take. Function morphemes serve grammatical functions, such as tying sentences together, and, or, but, or indicating time, when. About half of the morphemes in human languages are function morphemes, and it is the function morphemes that make human language grammatically complex enough to permit us to express abstract ideas rather than simply to point verbally to real objects in the here and now. Words can be combined to form an infinite number of new sentences, which are governed by syntactic rules that indicate how words can be combined to form phrases and sentences. A simple syntactic rule in English is that every sentence must contain one or more nouns, which may be combined with adjectives or articles to create noun phrases. See Figure 9.2, and one or more verbs, which may be combined with adverbs or articles to create verb phrases. So, the utterance "dogs bark" is a full sentence, but "the big gray dog over by the building" is not. Image with the following description: a flowchart illustrates the syntactic rules of English through the sentence "the dog eats a juicy bone". Figure 9.2 Syntactic rules. Syntactic rules indicate how words can be combined to form sentences. Every sentence must contain one or more nouns, which can be combined with adjectives or articles to create a noun phrase. A sentence also must contain one or more verbs, which can be combined with noun phrases, adverbs, or articles to create a verb phrase. The tree diagram starts with sentence on top and splits into noun phrase and verb phrase. Noun phrase shows two subdivisions, determiner and noun. Under determiner is the word "the", and under noun is the word "dog". Verb phrase is divided into verb and noun phrase. Under verb is the word "eats". The noun phrase is further divided into determiner and noun phrase. Under determiner is the letter A. Noun phrase. Phrase is divided into adjective and noun. Under adjective is the word juicy and under noun is the word bone. Language development. Language is a complex cognitive skill, yet we can carry on complex conversations with playmates and family even before we begin school. 3 characteristics of language development are worth bearing in mind. First, children learn language at an astonishingly rapid rate. The average 1-year-old has a vocabulary of 10 words, which expands to over 10,000 words in the next 4 years, requiring the child to learn, on average, about 6 or 7 new words every day. Second, children make few errors while learning to speak, and as we'll see shortly, the errors they do make usually result from applying, but over-regularizing, grammatical rules they've learned. This is an extraordinary feat. There are more than 3 million ways to rearrange the words in any 10-word sentence, but only a few of these arrangements will be both grammatically correct and meaningful. Bickerton, 1990. Third, at every stage of language development, children understand language better than they speak it. Distinguishing speech sounds. At birth, infants can distinguish among all of the contrasting sounds that occur in all human languages. Within the first 6 months of life, they lose this ability and, like their parents, can distinguish among the contrasting sounds only in the language they hear being spoken around them. For example, 2 distinct sounds in English are the L sound and the R sound, as in lead and red. These sounds are not distinguished in Japanese. Instead, the L and R sounds fall within the same phoneme. Japanese adults cannot hear the difference between these 2 phonemes, but American adults can distinguish between them easily, and so can Japanese infants. By the same token, American speakers do not hear many of the contrasts that are common in Japanese. Image with the following description: 2 photos. In each photo, a parent holds an infant, while a researcher holds up a toy penguin. The infant looks at the toy in the first photo and the display in the second photo. In this videotaped test, the infant watches an animated toy animal while a single speech sound is repeated. After a few repetitions, the sound changes, the display changes, then they both change again. If the infant switches her attention when the sound changes, she is anticipating the new display, which demonstrates that she can discriminate between the sounds. In one study, researchers played computer-synthesized speech of a voice saying la 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 or ra repeatedly. Cole et al., 2006. They used what is known as a head turn technique, in which infants, seated on a parent's lap as in the accompanying photo, were trained to turn their head toward a lively visual display whenever a background speech sound, example ra, was changed to a target speech sound, example la. Both American and Japanese infants aged 6 to 8 months turned their head toward the display when ra changed to la or vice versa, showing that they noticed the difference between the 2 sounds. At 10 to 12 months, American infants showed this effect even more strongly, but the Japanese infants showed decreased ability to discriminate the 2 sounds. Infants can distinguish among speech sounds, but they cannot produce them dependably and so must rely mainly on cries, laughs, and other vocalizations to communicate. Between the ages of about 4 and 6 months, they begin to babble speech sounds. Babbling involves combinations of vowels and consonants that sound like real syllables but are meaningless. Regardless of the language they hear spoken, all infants go through the same babbling sequence. For example, D and T appear in infant babbling before M and N. Even deaf infants babble sounds they've never heard, and they do so in the same order as hearing infants do, Allers and Eilers, 1988. This is evidence that infants aren't simply imitating the sounds they hear, rather, it suggests that babbling is a natural part of the language development process. For vocal babbling to continue, though, infants must be able to hear themselves. In fact, delayed babbling or the cessation of babbling merits testing for possible hearing difficulties. Babbling problems can lead to speech impairments, but they do not necessarily prevent language acquisition. Deaf infants whose parents communicate using American Sign Language, ASL, begin to babble with their hands at the same age that hearing children begin to babble vocally between 4 and 6 months, Petitto and Marantet, 1991. Image with the following description: a photo shows a woman and child talking in sign language. Deaf infants who learn sign language from their parents start babbling with their hands around the same time that hearing infants babble vocally. Language milestones. At about 10 to 12 months of age, infants begin to utter, or sign, their first words. By 18 months, they can say about 50 words and can understand several times more than that. Toddlers generally learn nouns before verbs, and the nouns they learn first are names for everyday concrete objects, example chair, table, milk, see table 9.1. At about this time, their vocabularies undergo explosive growth. By the time the average child begins school, a vocabulary of 10,000 words is not unusual. By 5th grade, the average child knows the meanings of 40,000 words. By college, the average student's vocabulary is about 200,000 words. Fast mapping, the process whereby children map a word onto an underlying concept after only a single exposure, enables them to learn at this rapid pace. Ken and Conert, 2008, Mervis and Bertrand, 1994. This astonishingly easy process contrasts dramatically with the effort required later to learn other concepts and skills, such as arithmetic or writing. Table 9.1 Language Milestones. Average age. Language milestones. 0 to 4 months. Can tell the difference between speech sounds, phonemes, cues, especially in response to speech. 4 to 6 months. Babbles consonants. 6 to 10 months. Understands some words and simple requests. 10 to 12 months. Begins to use single words. 12 to 18 months. Has vocabulary of 30 to 50 words, simple nouns, adjectives, and action words. 18 to 24 months. Two-word phrases ordered according to syntactic rules. Vocabulary consists of 50 to 200 words, understands rules. 24 to 36 months. Has vocabulary of about 1,000 words, produces phrases and incomplete sentences. 36 to 60 months. Vocabulary grows to more than 10,000 words, produces full sentences, shows mastery of grammatical morphemes, such as ed for past tense, and function words, such as the, and, but, can form questions and negations. Around 24 months, children begin to form two-word sentences, such as more milk or throw ball. Such sentences are referred to as telegraphic speech because they are devoid of function morphemes and consist mostly of content words. Yet despite the absence of function words, such as prepositions or articles, these two-word sentences tend to be grammatical. The words are ordered in a manner consistent with the syntactic rules of the language the children are learning to speak. So, for example, toddlers will say throw ball rather than ball throw when they want you to throw the ball to them, and they will say more milk rather than milk more when they want you to give them more milk. With these seemingly primitive expressions, 2-year-olds show that they have already acquired an appreciation of the syntactic rules of the language they are learning. The emergence of grammatical rules. If you listen to average 2 or 3-year-old children speaking, you may notice that they use the correct past tense versions of common verbs, as in the expressions I ran and you ate. By the age of 4 or 5, the same children will be using incorrect forms of these verbs, saying such things as I runned and you eated, forms most children are unlikely ever to have heard. Preseda and Pinker, 1993. The reason is that very young children memorize the particular sounds, i.e., words, that express what they want to communicate. But as children acquire the grammatical rules of their language, they tend to overregularize. For example, if a child overregularizes the rule that past tense is indicated by ed, then run becomes runned or even rant instead of ran. These errors show that language acquisition is not simply a matter of imitating adult speech. Instead, children acquire grammatical rules by listening to the speech around them and using those rules to create verbal forms they've never heard. They manage this without explicit awareness of the grammatical rules they've learned. In fact, few children or adults can articulate the grammatical rules of their native language, yet the speech they produce obeys these rules. By about 3 years of age, children begin to generate complete simple sentences that include function words, example give me the ball and that belongs to me. The sentences increase in complexity over the next 2 years. By the time children are 4 to 5 years of age, many aspects of the language acquisition process are complete. As children continue to mature, their language skills become more refined, with added appreciation of subtler communicative uses of language, such as humor, sarcasm, or irony. Language development and cognitive development. Language development typically unfolds as a sequence of steps in which children achieve one milestone before moving on to the next. Nearly all infants begin with one-word utterances before progressing to telegraphic speech and then to simple sentences that include function morphemes. This orderly progression could result from general cognitive development that is unrelated to experience with a specific language. Shore, 1986, Wexler, 1999. For example, perhaps infants begin with one and then two-word utterances because their short-term memories are so limited that initially they can hold in mind only a word or two. Additional cognitive development might be necessary before they have the capacity to put together a simple sentence. Alternatively, the orderly progression might depend on experience with a specific language, reflecting a child's emerging knowledge of that language. Bates and Goodman, 1997, Gillette et al., 1999. Image with the following description: a photo shows an European woman holding an adopted Chinese girl. Chinese preschoolers who are adopted by English-speaking parents progress through the same sequence of linguistic milestones as do infants born into English-speaking families, suggesting that these milestones reflect experience with English in particular rather than general cognitive development. To tease apart these possibilities, researchers examined the acquisition of English by internationally adopted children who did not know any English prior to adoption. Snedeker et al., 2007, 2012. If the orderly sequence of milestones that characterizes the acquisition of English by non-adopted infants is a byproduct of general cognitive development, then different patterns should be observed in older internationally adopted children, who are more advanced cognitively than infants. However, if the milestones of language development are critically dependent on experience with a specific language English, then language learning in older adopted children should show the same orderly progression as seen in infants. The main result was clear-cut. Language acquisition in preschool-age adopted children showed the same orderly progression of milestones that characterizes infants' language learning. These children began with one-word utterances before moving on to simple word combinations. Furthermore, their vocabulary, just like that of infants, was initially dominated by nouns, and they produced few function morphemes. These results indicate that some of the key milestones of language development depend on experience with the specific language, in this case, English. Other aspects of a child's experience also influence language development. A study of the language development of 1 to 2-year-old children in families at different levels of socioeconomic status, SES, ranging from families on welfare, low SES, to working class, middle SES, and professional, high SES, highlights that SES has a strong impact. By the time they reached age 3, children in high SES families were exposed to millions more words than were children in lower SES families. Hart and Risley, 1995. This came to be widely known as the 30 million word gap. The researchers also found that these early language differences were highly predictive of how these children performed as third graders on various language and cognitive tests. What exactly produces these troubling lags in low SES children? A study using video records of mother-child interactions, Hirsch-Pasek et al., 2015, found that both the quantity and the quality of words used by the mother during these interactions mattered. More words from the mother predicted higher performance by the child, highlighting again the importance of linguistic experience for language development. Theories of language development. We know a good deal about how language develops, but what underlies the process? The language acquisition process has been the subject of considerable controversy and, at times, angry exchanges among scientists coming